What if the most destructive force in our society wasn't something we can see, measure, or touch, but something we've learned to ignore? What if the collapse of communities, the spread of violence, the emotional numbness of generations, and the spiritual hollowness that haunts this modern world all point back to one silent, invisible fracture? One that begins not in politics, not in economics, but in the home, specifically in the absence of a father. This is a video about a philosophical crisis that we rarely talk about because we're afraid of what it might reveal about ourselves, about our culture, about what we've normalized. But today we're going to walk straight into it. The real reason so many people feel lost, broken, angry, or empty may not be what you think. It's not just trauma or poverty or lack of access to resources. It's the loss of structure, the erosion of masculine presence, and the disappearance of fathers. And not just biologically, but emotionally, spiritually, morally.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let me start by saying this. This isn't a blame game. This isn't about shaming single mothers, or demonizing men, or painting families with one brush. What we're talking about is something deeper than politics or headlines. This is about essence, about the philosophical role of the father in the architecture of the human soul. Because fatherhood, when truly embodied, is not just about provision. It's about orientation. Without a father or a father figure, we lose more than income. We lose the compass. You might be thinking, does that really matter in a modern world? We have technology, we have government programs, we have schools. But let me ask you, what replaces a father's gaze? What replaces the weight of a man's presence who says, "I see you and I will guide you"? The answer is nothing. Nothing can replace the subtle but powerful gravitational field that a father contributes to a child's identity. That gravitational field is what orients a child in the world. It gives them a sense of direction, not just physically, but morally, emotionally, spiritually. And when that's gone, the chaos begins. We know the data. Kids from fatherless homes are more likely to drop out of school, more likely to struggle with addiction, more likely to end up in prison. But these are just statistics. What they don't capture is the philosophical void, the existential dislocation that occurs when a father is not present to transmit a sense of meaning, responsibility, and structure. A father at his best is not just a disciplinarian. He is a mirror. He reflects back to you who you are and who you could become. When that mirror is shattered, the identity of the child begins to fragment. And what replaces it? Often, the child becomes prey to peer pressure, to digital addiction, to false ideologies, to self-hatred. Because without that grounding presence, we don't just feel unloved, we feel unreal. Let me ask you, who taught you how to suffer well? Because life will break you. That's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And when it does, the presence of a father who shows you how to carry pain with dignity, how to turn anger into action, in how to face failure without collapsing, that presence is irreplaceable. When that's missing, we don't know how to deal with pain. So we numb it, we project it, we become adults with the emotional tools of children. And we wonder why society is filled with rage, addiction, and confusion. This is not just about men. This affects everyone. Because when young men grow up without fathers, They often grow into men who cannot father emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And when young women grow up without fathers, they often spend their lives searching for the masculine energy they never truly received, sometimes in toxic relationships, but sometimes in workaholism, sometimes in perfectionism. Both are trying to answer the same unspoken question: am I safe? Am I enough? Am I seen? So many of us are walking around with a father wound we don't even recognize. We think our problems are about money or partners or lack of motivation, when in reality we are still trying to heal the absence of a masculine presence that should have said, "I believe in you. I've got you. I'll teach you how to walk through fire." And when that presence doesn't arrive, we become spiritually homeless. We float through life reactive, anxious, disconnected. And society at large reflects that disorientation. Let's go deeper. What is a father philosophically? Not just biologically, but archetypally. He is the law, not in the authoritarian sense, but in the foundational sense. He is the voice that says, "This is the boundary. This is the standard. This is what you must rise to." Without that voice, we lose the structure that our psyche depends on. And we might rebel against that voice, especially in adolescence. But we need it. It gives us something to push against, something to transcend. No mountain to climb, no growth, no struggle, no strength. Children without fathers often grow up with no mountain. Just a flat, confusing world where everything is relative and nothing is earned. And in that world, despair takes root. Jordan Peterson once said, "A father's responsibility is to encourage his child to risk everything in pursuit of the highest good." That's not just poetic, it's essential. Because a father, at his best, doesn't just offer safety. He offers challenge. He introduces you to the world, not as a place where you deserve comfort, but as a place where you must earn your way. And that lesson, when delivered with love and consistency, shapes a human being who is capable of facing reality and building something real. Now ask yourself, what happens to a society when millions grow up without that initiation? We get a culture of entitlement without responsibility, emotion without regulation, chaos without order. And the most dangerous part, we normalize it. We say kids are resilient, or mums can do both, or dads are optional. And yet, deep down, we all feel the consequences. Look around. The rise in depression, the explosion of identity confusion, the epidemic of loneliness, the collapse of community, these are not isolated issues. They are symptoms of a deeper spiritual disconnection. And the absence of fathers is a core part of that disconnection. But here's the hope. This doesn't have to be the end of the story. Because fatherhood isn't only biological. It's spiritual. It's archetypal, which means it can be reclaimed. It can be reborn. You can become the father you never had. You can seek out mentors. You can step into fatherhood for others. You can build a new lineage, not just of DNA, but of value, of presence, of truth. The crisis is real, but so is the opportunity. We can't change the past, but we can change the pattern. Let me ask you directly, what kind of father do you want to become for yourself, for your children, for your community? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. You just have to show up. Because your presence is power. Your presence is the antidote to chaos. And the world needs you now more than ever. This is not a political issue. This is not even a social issue. This is a civilizational issue. When fathers disappear, civilizations crumble not because men are superior, but because the masculine principle is essential. Just like the feminine principle, we need both, in harmony, in balance, in presence. We need fathers who stay, fathers who lead, fathers who love. And when we build that foundation, everything changes. Our schools change, our communities change, our souls change. Because suddenly we're not lost anymore. We're not drifting. We're grounded. We're seen. We're loved. So if you've ever felt that ache, that longing for a father you never had, or the guilt of a father you failed to be, know this, it's not too late. You can heal. You can refather yourself. You can become the man, the human, the guide that your younger self was waiting for. And when you do, you won't just heal yourself, you'll heal generations. If we truly understood what fatherhood means, not just as a role, but as a principle, we would treat it as sacred. Because fatherhood is not just about raising a child. It's about raising a standard. It's about being a bridge between chaos and order, instinct and wisdom, love and discipline. And when that bridge collapses, the ripple effects are not just emotional or personal, they're civilizational. But we don't just lose a dad. We lose structure, meaning, and spiritual gravity. But that's why I believe this crisis of fatherlessness is not simply a social issue, it's a philosophical collapse. And the only way to fix it is to rebuild not just the family, but our entire view of masculinity, responsibility, and identity. Let's start with something simple but radical. What does it mean to be a father in the deepest sense? Is it just biology? Is it just financial support? Or is it something far more profound? A true father is not defined by blood. He's defined by presence, by his willingness to stay when it's hard, by his ability to serve something greater than his own comfort, by his courage to confront the chaos not just in the world, but in himself. Because here's the truth, you cannot father anyone until you've fathered yourself. Until you've learned to discipline your emotions, to own your failures, to speak with clarity, to act with integrity. That's what young people are starving for. Not perfection, not dominance, but integrity. A man who says what he means and means what he says. A man who listens without disappearing. A man who corrects without shaming. A man who can carry weight not just physical, but emotional, moral, spiritual. And that's the tragedy of the fatherless crisis. It's not just that fathers are absent from homes. It's that fatherhood itself has been devalued. We've mocked it in media, minimized it in culture, and replaced it with systems that cannot love. We've said, we don't need men, and then we wonder why boys drift into gangs, why girls seek validation in unhealthy places, why society feels untethered. A culture that disrespects fatherhood is a culture that sabotages its own future. Because the father isn't just a protector. He is a transmitter of values. He teaches by example how to handle hardship, how to respect boundaries, how to serve others, how to walk through suffering with dignity. And when that example is gone, we're left with confusion. We're left with generations asking, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to live with purpose? and no one is there to answer. But here's the deeper question: why have we allowed this to happen? Why have we created a world where fathers are disposable? Why have we accepted a narrative that tells us masculinity is toxic, that responsibility is oppressive, that tradition is outdated? It's because we've mistaken freedom for liberation from everything, including the very structures that give life meaning. But freedom without structure is not freedom, it's chaos. And when we throw out the father, we throw out the structure. We become a society of individuals without orientation, without legacy, without roots. And that disconnection isn't just intellectual, it's spiritual. You can feel it in your body. You can feel it in the loneliness epidemic, in the mental health crisis, in the spiritual hunger that no amount of entertainment can satisfy. We don't need more content. We need connection. We don't need more voices. We need presence. We need fathers in the truest sense, men who are rooted, responsible, and real. The good news? We can rebuild, but we must start with ourselves. If you're watching this and you didn't have a father, or had one who was absent, abusive, or emotionally unavailable, I want you to know something: your pain is valid. The wound is real, and it's not your fault. But it is your responsibility now, not to carry the shame, but to break the cycle. Because cycles don't break by accident. They break when someone says, "It ends with me." When someone stands in the fire of generational dysfunction and chooses to become what they never received. That's not just healing, that's transformation. And it's one of the most sacred acts a human being can do. So how do we rebuild fatherhood in a culture that has forgotten what it means? First, we must redefine strength. Strength is not domination, but it's not stoicism to the point of silence. True strength is the ability to hold space for others without losing yourself. It's the capacity to protect without controlling, to guide without crushing. A strong father is emotionally intelligent, but he knows when to be soft and when to be firm. He's not afraid of pain, his own or others. He doesn't run from responsibility. He runs toward it. Because he knows that true masculinity is not about power over others, it's about power with purpose. Second, we must reclaim discipline, not as punishment, but as love in action. A father who disciplines is not being cruel, he's saying, "I care about your future more than your comfort." He is setting a boundary that says, "I will not let you become someone small." That kind of love is rare. It's not glamorous, it won't win applause, but it builds character. And in a world filled with distraction, a father who teaches discipline is giving his children the gift of direction. Third, we must return to presence. Not just time, but quality of being. You can be in the same room as your child and still be absent. You can provide money and still leave them starving for connection. Presence is about attention. It's about listening without judgment. It's about showing up even when you're tired, even when you're unsure, even when you're afraid. Because when a child sees that you are there no matter what, they learn that the world is not a place of abandonment. They learn that they are worth staying for. And finally, we must embrace legacy. Not just in terms of wealth, but in terms of wisdom. The question every father must ask is, what am I passing on? Not just genetically, but emotionally, spiritually, philosophically. What values will my children inherit from me? What stories will they tell about my presence in their life? What kind of world will they build based on what I taught them explicitly or silently? That's legacy. And legacy doesn't happen later. It happens now, with every conversation, every decision, every moment of presence or absence. You are building your legacy whether you realize it or not. So what will it be? Let me ask you something deeply personal. If your child grew up to become exactly like you in every way, your habits, your beliefs, your integrity, would you be proud? If the answer is no, don't despair. Just decide. Decide to change. Decide to grow. Decide to become the father you wish you had, or the one you're grateful you did. Because fatherhood is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's about showing your children what it means to rise and to fall, and to rise again with grace and grit. And here's the final truth. You don't have to do it alone. Rebuilding fatherhood is not a solo mission. It's a movement, one that starts with men choosing to heal, and to lead, to love. And it includes women too, mothers, sisters, partners who honor the role of fathers without trying to replace it. It includes mentors, coaches, elders, spiritual leaders, anyone who steps into the gap where a father is missing and says, "I'll be the example." Because in the end, we all need fathers. We all need that steady hand, that grounding presence, that voice of truth. And when we rebuild that, we don't just save boys or girls. We save society. We save the future. So here's the invitation. Be the one who stays. Be the one who listens. Be the one who leads. Be the one who breaks the cycle. Be the father, biological or spiritual, that this world so desperately needs. Because when we restore fatherhood, we restore balance. We restore hope. We restore the soul of a broken generation. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we begin to rebuild everything. If this spoke to you, share it. Speak it. Be it. Because the world doesn't need more opinions, it needs more fathers.